Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to our award ceremony. The COVID pandemic has changed the world of teaching and learning forever, and self-directed learning has become more important than ever before. The mission of the research unit Self-Directed Learning is to promote self-directed learning in all education sectors. Therefore, we decided that we would like to acknowledge persons who contribute to the promotion of self-directed learning. We decided that we, as EXCO of the Research Unit Self-Directed Learning, would like to award one specific award in 2021, namely the extraordinary contribution to the promotion of self-directed learning in the broader community. Through this award, we recognize a person contributing extensively to the promotion of self-directed learning in the broader community. It is my privilege to announce the first winner of this new award category for 2021 today. And the winner is Mr. Johan van Lille. I now call upon Prof. Joseph de Beer to introduce Mr. Johan van Lille to us. Thank you, Prof. Joseph.
Thank you, Prof. Elsa. Dear colleagues, it's really my privilege to introduce to you Mr. Johan van Lille. Author, education specialist, radio documentarist, social entrepreneur, and arts philanthropist. Johan van Lille's body of work demonstrates an individual motivated to make a positive impact on the environment around him. Widely regarded as the go-to expert on the complex stages of child development, he is one of the very few men in South Africa who holds qualifications in foundation phase teaching. Van Lille regularly consults with both schools and parents on how to prepare children optimally for school and formal learning. In addition, he has written several educational series as well as developed primary and secondary school curricula and materials. Radio in particular has been the medium through which Mr. van Lille has gained a reputation for enriching the lives of listeners across South Africa with his insightful documentaries on the arts, education, spirituality and language. Mr. van Lille's vast repertoire has been recognized by the South African Academy of Science and Arts, and he received a Medal of Honor for his contribution to the field during 2018. In 2017, he received the BASA Award for Art Journalism, and in 2016, he was recognized by the Western Cape government for his contribution to arts and culture in the province. Prof. Elsa, can I call on you to please hand over the award to Mr. van Lille?
I would now like to call upon Johan to come to the fore to receive his award. Congratulations, Johan.
Thank you so much.
And he is now going to say a few words to us. Johan, we are looking forward to listen to you.
Thank you. It's such an honor to receive an award like this. This award is in so many ways special and close to my heart, as I have such a passion and enthusiasm for the work that the Northwest University Research Unit Self-Directed Learning is doing and the contribution it is making to better education in South Africa. When Professor Joseph de Beer reached out to RSG a few years ago to get involved as a possible media partner, his proposal landed on my desk as the presenter of the educational programs. Although RSG could not become a media partner at the time, I immediately knew that with Ons in die Onderwys, there is an opportunity to create an awareness around self-directed learning, as my listeners consist of educationalists, academics, educational leaders, teachers, parents and learners. What got me interested was a paragraph in Joseph's email where he pointed out that self-directed learning should be one of the key priorities in South Africa, as many educationists are more and more critical of the performance-driven education system we currently have. And typical of Joseph and the excellent way that he can get a point across, the next line got me hooked. We can't train children like circus animals for exams. We have to prepare them for the 21st century with problem-solving skills, entrepreneurial skills, to be lifelong learners, to take responsibility for their own learning and development, and that it was time for a national debate on this matter. I immediately thought we can help with that. As RSG is one of the few radio stations that are available everywhere in South Africa, let's get them talking about education. And did we get them talking? We recorded our first few programs and the response was quite interesting. From people SMSing, "What nonsense is this? Children should learn to learn and memorize, and it is the teacher's role to transmit knowledge." Up to, "Thanks so much, you just gave a name and a definition of what I'm doing in my classroom. Now I can be proud of what I'm doing in my classroom." And one that I liked most was just more, more, more. I've got lots of feedback from district officers and principals asking for the podcast. Professor Elsa Mens and everyone at the Research Unit Self-Directed Learning, many thanks for honouring me with this award. When I look at this award, the word that pops into my mind is a 21st century skill, collaboration. Thanks for your patience in making the time available in your busy schedules to prepare for the recordings and the interviews. I always appreciate the practical examples you provide to make the programs relatable for our listeners, as not all of them are educators. I remember when we aired one of the very first programs, there was a listener who was complaining about it being too much theory. Make it practical. Give us examples. That was the kind of SMSs that came through. And as the program was pre-recorded, there was nothing that I could do at that stage. But luckily, we did include a question, thanks to USF, and that was the question: "Elsa, can you please give us an example on how you can use self-directed learning in the classroom?" And Professor Elsa Mens gave the most beautiful example of how you can use self-directed learning when you do volcanoes with the learners. The response of the same listener was short and sweet: "Thanks, that can work." From my side, I want to congratulate all of you at the Research Unit Self-Directed Learning on what you achieved with this unit in such a short time. What you are doing now will benefit South Africa for many, many decades to come. In closing, journalists are self-directed learners themselves. Knowles, considered as the father of self-directed learning, defined it as follows. And when I read this, I realize that this is basically my job description. In its broadest meaning, self-directed learning describes a process by which you take the initiative, with or without the assistance of others, in identifying your learning needs, formulating learning goals, identifying human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating outcomes. And these are basically the steps to produce and present a show for radio. Awards and recognition always remind me of the responsibility we have as presenters and producers to ensure that what we air must be of quality and value. We can't do it without trustworthy and knowledgeable partners. And for me, that is why it is such a privilege to work with the Northwest University Research Unit Self-Directed Learning on so many of my programs. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sir. Congratulations on your award. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I started off as a foundation phase teacher. I did some teaching for a few years, and then I wasn't a great teacher, so I decided maybe I should do something else and still be involved with education. So then I studied further, and then I became a journalist, and so at the moment I'm a presenter at RSG, and my focus is specifically parenting shows and educational shows. So that's what I do most of the times, and I'm also involved with other educational initiatives, so I like to put my weight into education.
Education, definitely. According to you, what is self-directed learning?
Sure, that's a difficult one. I think for me it is giving learners the opportunity to be in the middle of their learning, to take initiative for their learning, to do problem solving, to identify what they want to learn, how they can learn it, when they can learn it, and then take responsibility for that learning, and then to also to decide what goals they have for their learning, and then how they're going to get to those goals. So for me, that's in the middle of self-directed learning, and it takes it moves the educational process towards the learner and take away the transmission of knowledge from the teacher, so that they can find their own resources and that they can through that develop the things that they really are interested in, and use that knowledge to broaden their whole learning environment. So for me, that's broadly a non-academic version of what I think self-directed learning is.
If you could give any advice to the basic and higher education ministers, with regards to self-directed learning, what advice would you give them?
I think first of all we need to debate on it. I think people should be a lot more critical about education. So I think there should be more platforms for everybody, from learners up to parents, teachers, to be more critical and to invite it that people should be critical. And self-directed learning is a great way of getting people critical and to help them with the problem solving, because we are all self-directed learners in whatever you do. So lifelong learning is being a self-directed learner. So my advice would be to start off with that, to hear what people are thinking about education, to listen, and then start giving back what the need is at the moment. A lot of what's happening in schools at the moment is so results driven, and they're all about the achievements, but nothing prepares them for the world after school. So a lot of our learners think if you've got a matric certificate now you're made for life. If you've got a entry at university, but that's only the start. It's only a little piece of paper. So we need to have the conversation of what should happen at school level that will prepare you for life. And I think that is at the moment lacking, because we focus so much on matric results, and teachers are really training the learners to write those exams. And for me, the penny is not dropping at the moment that we are losing the one generation after the other, not giving them the exposure to really learn what is important, to prioritize. We call it in neuroscience to develop the executive functions. And for me, that is lacking in education. So I would love her to start focusing on those things. And apart from all the facilities and all the stuff, that's also a shame that there are still schools that don't have that. But for me, from a pedagogical point of view, I think self-directed learning is so geared to get these conversations going, because that's what happened on radio. The moment when we started talking about self-directed learning, I got a response from the listeners, start criticizing things, and they were very critical about what's happening. I mean, post-COVID, we also need to be critical about what's happening in schools. I think for the first time, parents have an idea of what their children are doing in schools, and I think they're much more thankful for their teachers. So, but I also think that many of the parents realizing that what they learn at school is not directed at what they need after school. And you pick up a frustration under the parents for that. So self-directed learning is also a tool for parents to empower their learners.
Because you were a foundation phase teacher, do you think enough is being done with regards to teaching children about self-directed learning, children within the foundation phase about self-directed learning?
Definitely. I was asked to leave education at the end of my second year in teaching, because I did strange things. And we're now talking like way back before outcomes-based education and all those things and CAPS and all that. So I was still in a very content-driven educational system, and I had to teach in the foundation phase. And then they told me at the end of my second year, please go and find something else. The things you are doing in the classroom is not really, you need to teach 3 R's. And I said, no, but I've got a herb garden that I kind of used to teach maths and writing and all those things in the class. And I did everything integrated, gave them problems and all those things. And so it was only about 30 years later when I've met Yusuf that I gave it a name, that what I did at that time was a version, very watered down, of self-directed learning because it made sense to me. So, and that's why I think self-directed learning starts basically when just after you're born.
What is your view on self-directed learning within the community?
I think we still have a long way to go because people are only now getting used to terms like blended learning and cooperative learning and self-directed learning they don't know it yet. So what I try to do in my show is to put it out there so that people can hear these words, they can hear the terminology, and they start and can see how it can fit with what their ideals and goals are for their kids. So we still have a long way to go, but I think teachers are really much more there than sometimes don't know what you don't know. And I think they're more there for it, they just don't know what to call it. So I think, yeah, but we still have a long way to go.
How do you feel about being the first person to receive this extraordinary award?
I feel humbled and I also feel it was a surprise, and I feel that it's a team effort. So there should be many more people kind of with me. I think of with the team that I'm working with at RSG and the team at the research unit, self-directed learning. So there should be more people. So I feel that, but I also say, and I think about it, that it also reminds you of the responsibility of what you're doing on air, so that what you do should be trustworthy and reliable, and then you need to align you with partners that can assist you with that. So in a sense, that's also, for me, this represents that we have a partnership on air to give people the information that they crave and that they need, and to fulfill that, and to empower and to educate.
Do you feel that the media is doing enough to promote and educate the community about self-directed learning?
In general, no. I think we should do more. It's much easier to report on the problems at the schools, which you can see. It's also easier to make visual shows and take pictures of that. The moment when we start talking about approaches to education, different ways of teaching, it's abstract, and then people always think it's only applicable to teachers, so it's a small audience. So for the media, it's also difficult because the moment when you start doing that, people don't know that they are interested in it. So to present that is also a challenge. So I think the media can do more, but it takes a lot of time to do these things because there's a lot of preparation going into it. You can't just do a show on self-directed learning. You have to read at least 5 or 6 articles before the time to prepare you for it. So that's also a challenge. And it helps when you are a journalist and you've got an educational background. It helps a lot. But not all the media houses have that privilege to have people that have both qualifications. So that helps a lot. But we can do more.
I think my last question for you, Johan, is what is one of the most memorable self-directed learning shows or episodes that you have broadcasted?
I think the ones on assessment was quite interesting for me because it's such a topical topic and people like to talk about assessment. And it was very interesting how to bring that into self-directed learning because that is such a complicated thing for teachers to do and to get right. And now assessment is part of the learning process. So for me, that was the interesting show, and I also got a lot of responses on that one specifically. And there was another one that I really enjoyed. That was one that I did about indigenous knowledge and how that links up with self-directed learning and how people with this indigenous knowledge of how to plant certain things and they carry it over from one generation to the other, but that's all based, they are all self-directed learners, and that for me was the learning curve of, but then I'm also a self-directed learner. So that was one of the programs that the penny dropped for me, that lifelong learning is part of my job. And I've also got a lot of knowledge about what I do, and I also transfer that to other people, but I learn every day and I direct my own learning. So that was those were the programs that for me that stood out.
No, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to everything that you're going to be doing in the future with regards to self-directed learning.
Thanks so much.